everyone, Carl here with Literate Lessons, bringing you a deep dive, not really featuring a team, but I decided that we should probably talk about team building a little bit before we get too much farther into Series 12. I've been seeing a ton of teams submitted to us via Discord, and I've been seeing teams on Twitter, and I've been hearing people complain that, oh, I'm stuck. Oh, I can't really build a good team. I don't know how to build a team. I build teams, but they don't work right. So I figured we could talk about team building overall and kind of talk about some of the common pitfalls that I see people do. Very, very commonly, I might add, just overall, just not organized, I would say. But before we get started on all that, make sure to hit that like button, ring the bell for notifications for when new videos go live. It helps us out a lot. Leave a comment down below about anything you want to see me talk about. This one was a nice little brainstorming session with one of our Discord members here, so it was kind of fun to get ideas from them and then kind of come up with my own thing. So before we talk about all the pitfalls and bad teams and things like that, I kind of want to go over what a good team looks like. We know mostly what good teams look like. They're fairly balanced. They have a lot of variety. They can handle multiple archetypes, not really losing to one thing too terribly easily. The best example is the Rinya Sun team that we've seen so much of here lately. With things like this AV Groudon, this Charizard, Grimmsnarl, Incineroar, Gastrodon, Zacian. This team is very solidly built. It's got a great defensive core in Groudon, Charizard, Incineroar, Gastrodon. Like, most of your Pokemon can tank some sort of damage, and if they wouldn't tank it normally, the Grimmsnarl's there to help support that and make that a little bit better for them. Groudon, Charizard have great synergy. Groudon, Gastrodon have great synergy. Same thing with Charizard, Gastrodon. Incin helps out as well. So this is kind of what a good team looks like. You have really good max targets in Groudon and Charizard. You have like this backup Gastrodon max option if you really want that. You have really good damage output and speed in Zacian, and you have decent support coming out of Grimmsnarl and Incineroar and Gastrodon. And so when you go and look at this kind of like archetype of teams, it pops up a whole lot more often than just that kind of team. Like this team here, we have a offensive Thundurus, a offensive Groudon, offensive Lunala, Gigantamax Venusaur, and then we have Incineroar and Porygon to support. We have very good options for max. We have very good support options. We have multiple forms of speed control in the form of Dynamax Thundurus or Trick Room on Porygon 2 or Lunala. We have this awesome like weather control thing with Groudon Venusaur. There's a whole lot going on here, and it flows, it balances out, and it cohesives together really, really well. Now let's take a look at what I would consider a bad team. Okay, so this was one of my experiments for Cole, and on paper, it looks fine. You have Yveltal, Zacian, Colossal, Blastoise, Dragapult, and a random Landorus is kind of weird. This is usually Rillaboom. I was just experimenting something. And we all know Colossal, Dragapult, that combo is really good. Colossal Blastoise is really, really good. I would call this a bad team because you are very dissynergized and can struggle against more organized teams. Like, if you're Dynamaxing Colossal, you're really kind of pushing a lot of pressure on Yveltal to kind of be your backline. Same thing with the Zacian. This Landorus is not built to Dynamax either, so you're really limiting your Colossal as your only really good Dynamax target, with Blastoise and Yveltal kind of being the tertiary, the third option for Dynamax. And you never really want to have a bunch of options for like subpar Dynamaxes. Your Dragapult obviously is fine. It does a decent job at trying to be a support, but this is a offensive Pokemon, so kind of have to play with what you got. And so with that being said, let's talk about the first thing, and it's defined as Dissynergy, which isn't really a word, but when things aren't synergistic. And what I mean by that is things like using your, like this ability Drought. Drought sets Sun. A big caveat people do is like, well, Groudon's weak to this, this, and this, and so I need this, this, and this. Well, Groudon may be weak to water. You don't want Kartana, that is 4 times weak to fire, as your grass type of choice. While Groudon struggles against bulky steel type sometimes, you don't want Solgaleo sitting across from you when you have Sun up, because Solgaleo is just going to take a chunk from things it's probably not supposed to be taking a chunk from, i.e. Incineroar, Flare Blitz, and things like that. You also don't want to make sure that you're like pairing Pokemon that don't synergize well, like overall. Like, because Groudon sets Sun, your Blastoise is not going to be dealing as much damage as it should be, which Blastoise doesn't deal a whole lot of damage to begin with. And so when you're reducing that damage with your abilities even more, it really makes it hard on the rest of your team to try and carry and pick up the pieces where your Groudon or your Kyogre like have left off. That's why you don't see a lot of fire type Pokemon outside of Incineroar on the Kyogre Rain teams. That's just something that's really, really weak that you don't want to be playing. And the kind of same thing is why you don't see water types with Groudon too terribly often. Sun makes those water types weaker and makes it harder to use them. Next up on my list, I want to talk about offense, no offense, and all offense teams. You see these every once in a while where people really like certain Pokemon and they lose a lot of the time due to just being out pressured and outmaneuvered most of the time. And so they're just, I'm just going to build all of the support into my team and play around this one Pokemon. In the case for this one, we have like Grimmsnarl for screens, we have a Mungus for redirection, we have Zamazenta to kind of just be a wall, and we're kind of probably playing around this Lugia with multi-scale and weakness policy. Now, on its own, Lugia is decent. It's not great by any means, but what it really needs is offensive pressure behind it to where it pulls attention away from it. Because if your opponent can just blow up your Grimmsnarl, blow up your Amoonguss, and not care about Zamazenta, that puts a lot of pressure on Lugia to carry. And overall, this is not a good thing for your team. This really pigeonholes you into, I have to Dynamax this Pokemon every time, and your opponent can easily predict into that and just play around that very, very effectively. On the flip side of that, there are teams with all offense that I feel like have the same problem. Being all offense means that if your opponent has just the tiniest amount, just the smallest amount of disruption, you really struggle at trying to get back into the game and get caught back up. You see this a lot on these Zacian Kyogre teams. When you're playing like Zacian Kyogre, Zapdos, Kartana, other offensive Pokemon. Like, one little thing can go wrong and then your entire plan blows up because you're outsped, or you got KO'd randomly by something you shouldn't have. Crits happen. Opponents can play really well into this kind of stuff, and so when you're all offense and don't have a great way of supporting your rest of your squad, you kind of have the same problem as the no offense teams. You kind of struggle and kind of get bopped. Overall, though, I think you would rather be all offense than no offense. Having too much pressure, usually you can win games that way. Whereas with the no offense squads, you really struggle when you don't have enough damage to take out Pokemon. I call this too much of a good thing, mainly due to the fact that it's people trying to just jam parts of teams they like together. This kind of harkens back to the Dissynergy thing, where it's like, you don't want to pair this and this together because they don't really work together. Well, I've been seeing this a lot here lately, and like, let's play Kyogre and Groudon, let's play some Sun abusers, let's play some Rain abusers, and kind of to see where it goes. It doesn't work that well. This is when I call it too much of a good thing, it's you're trying to do too many things at once. Yes, it's good to be diversified with your threats and can play around with that stuff, but you still want the team to kind of harmoniously work together. You want it to work like cogs in a gear. Yes, they work independently, but when they mesh up, they work really well. Instead of having this one being, let's say this one's square, and then this one's a circle, they're not going to link up really well because the square is just going to bounce into the circle, and the circle's just going to roll off. That's kind of what's going on here. We have Pokemon that really like Sun with Charizard and Venusaur. And well, that means Groudon's really good, and so we probably bring Bronzong, and that's the team. Well, our Rain mode lacks a little bit because we have Kyogre, Zapdos, Bronzong, but then what do we do for Rain? Like, what else are we bringing? Charizard's no good here because it's not going to get any damage output off. Venusaur really wants that Sun to be up, so you want to be able to outspeed things. And so this is where the circle meets the square, and you're kind of stuck in this position of when Sun isn't good, you have to bring Rain. So you have to bring a suboptimal version of Rain. And you can change something out, and you'll have the same problem when you go to do Sun. Like, depending on what you change this Venusaur out into, you'll have a suboptimal Sun team with Groudon, Charizard, Bronzong, and probably one of your Rain Pokemon. That's just how the game works, unfortunately, and sometimes you overestimate on what you have and eventually just overdo it, essentially. Last topic of discussion, this one is not really presented too well on a team by team basis, but it is it's still a problem, I feel like, and it is knee-jerk reactions to the meta. I see this a ton where it's happening a lot right now, where people are kind of just grabbing and going. We've seen a really big rise in a lot of unique things right now, especially when everyone's trying to beat the Sun team here. Everybody's trying to figure out what's the best way to deal with it. How can I just destroy this team because I expect this team to be everywhere, blah, 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 blah. And so everyone's knee-jerk, fast reacting is like, oh, this is really good because this does this and this does this on paper. So that means I'm really, really good and I could beat this team. Well, that's not necessarily always true. Pokemon is a best of 3 format by nature. Even though your ladder matches may say one thing, your best of 3 matches will probably say another. A great example of this is people trying to run around and beat Charizard with this overpowering Chardyberry. I've seen this a ton where everyone's like, well, how do I beat Chardyberry Zard? I know. I'll just play a rock type to overpower it. And so what they do is they go and grab they'll go and grab their stack attackers. They'll go and grab whatever rock type Colossal or whatever in the back there and try to fit it on their team. And then they end up changing their team so much that was doing really well just to try and knee-jerk reaction beat this team. And so what that means is you've just destroyed whatever you were doing really well just to try and get a leg up on this team instead of just learning how the team works and how to effectively apply pressure against it. I'll be the first person to tell you it takes a lot to get through this Chardyberry when they're Dynamax. I think one of the first ones I checked was Landorus T with Helping Hand. I think that gets through it, but barely. Chardyberry reduces a lot of that damage, and unless you're dealing close to 200% to Dynamax Charizard, which can be done, but it takes a lot, you're not breaking that Chardyberry, and Charizard's still going to get to do its thing, and then you're probably down a Pokemon, and then Wildfire got set up, and so now they're chipping you down, and it just snowballs from there. With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this kind of unique look at how to team build and whatnot. We always talk about what good things we can do, how to team build and how to approach things, but we never talk about just the common pitfalls people see, the things that stump some players most of the time. And I thought it'd be good to kind of get that out in the open. Again, make sure to check us out on Twitter. Make sure to check out our Discord. All of our socials and whatnot are linked down below. Make sure to smash that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications for when new videos go live. It helps us out a lot. We are at 336 subs last time I checked, really close to that 350. We got about, I think it's 3 weeks before I leave for Indy. Would love to hit that number before then. And if you're going to Indy, come find me. I'll have Little Root Lesson stickers printed out and carried around with me. So if you see me there, wave me down, say hi. Do not be afraid for that. And hopefully I will see you all there. But that's all I got today. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're at in the world. And we'll see you all next week. Bye, everyone.